Planned Parenthood finally released their annual report from 2021 and 2022. And spoiler alert, they're still killing people. And as they're doing that, they continue to get more and more funding from our government. No. They're getting more and more funding from you, the taxpayer, because we have not defunded Planned Parenthood. And so they now receive, I think the number is about $607 million of your money. It amazes me that Planned Parenthood is not in national news more often, considering they kill hundreds of thousands of people every single year. But I think the reason is because most of what they do gets brushed under the rug. It's behind closed doors. The media doesn't really know what's going on inside these buildings all across the country. We do, and I hope that we continue to speak up to expose that. And one of the ways that we can do that is by breaking down their annual report. So that's what I want to do with you today, because I think it reveals some very important things to us about what's really going on there. Because as we know, Planned Parenthood spends millions of dollars on marketing every single year. And they need to, because they have to get ahead of the media. They have to get ahead of the narrative to somehow paint themselves as anything other than an evil, racist organization that kills babies for profit. If they can spin that in any sort of positive way, they are capable of a lot. So when we break down the numbers, we see that this false statistics and these lies of, well, Planned Parenthood, only 3% of what they do is abortion, and they support women, and they provide life-saving healthcare. All of these things are a lie. They are. And the best way that we can combat these lies is with truth. And one of the ways we can do that is by breaking down their own numbers. So I want to go through a couple of things. The first is services and things that have increased in the last year. This is 21 through 22. The first is taxpayer funding. Planned Parenthood now receives over 1.8 million tax dollars every day. And this is an increase of about 6% from the previous year, which rounds up to $670.4 million in taxpayer funding going straight to Planned Parenthood. And so the next time you hear somebody make the argument of, we need abortion, because what about all these suffering women? What about the women that can't afford childcare, the ones that can't afford birth, or the ones that can't afford care for their babies? Well, I wonder where we could get some money to actually support women in need. Maybe if we defund Planned Parenthood and funnel that into organizations that actually care for women, we might see a shift in culture, a change. Maybe then we wouldn't view motherhood as the end of your life, because that's what Planned Parenthood does. They paint motherhood as scary and overwhelming, and you can never do it, and you don't have the resources for that, and we're not going to provide the resources. We're just going to sell you an abortion and pretend that that solves all of your problems. So I do not believe that we don't have the resources to support women. I know for a fact that a lot of those resources are getting funneled into Planned Parenthood so that they can continue to kill children. The next thing that went up is private funding for Planned Parenthood. So this is donors, and it increased 23% from about $590,000 to $727,000 in 1 year. Ridiculous. Other things that have increased are excess revenue, cancer screenings. However, although they increased 13% in the last year, that's still a drop of about 78% from their record high year in 2004. Other things that increase is transgender services, and these increased of about 15,000% from 2020 to 2021, with about 41 of their 49 affiliates now offering transgender services. Contraceptives increased, but when we look at the things that decreased, there's a few very interesting things to note. The first thing that decreased actually is abortions. And that's not because Planned Parenthood is dwindling the number of abortions or they want to focus on other things. Their focus is and always will be abortion. However, as we know, Roe v. Wade was overturned, praise the Lord, and many states were required and forced to shut down, which means Planned Parenthoods in certain states weren't able to perform abortions. So I think the reason that we saw a decrease is because of the efforts of pro-life activists, which mean abortion bans do prevent abortions and they save lives. Other things that have decreased is adoption referrals, which is not surprising. These numbers have been dwindling pretty much consistently for the last 10 years as Planned Parenthood continues to focus more on things like abortion and now transgender care. They are prioritizing things like adoption referrals and prenatal care much less. So adoption referrals dropped by about 7%, and prenatal care also dropped from about 29% from the previous year. But this isn't a surprise to us. We have been saying this all along. These things are not their priority. They are things that they do to distract you from what's really going on behind those walls. And the last thing I wanted to know is that miscarriage care and STI testing and treatment also dropped in this last year. And there's a few key things that I think is important for us to talk about and highlight. The first is that abortions have dropped slightly. Praise the Lord, they've dropped from about 383,000 to 374,000. So it's not a huge drop, but it is a drop. And I think that is largely because of the work of pro-life activists. But the other thing that we should note, again, like I said, all of these other services that they claim to do to support women are dwindling year by year. And the last thing that I think is very important for us to know is what has increased the most, and that is transgender care. The reason is because Planned Parenthood has found a new business model and focus. They have realized that as they've been building connections with young people, we know that Planned Parenthood targets this generation, my generation, and younger, because they are grooming their future clients, but they are harming people along the way. And there's a video that I want to show you of a woman sharing her testimony after going into a Planned Parenthood to receive transgender care.
It was scarily easy to do because I had just called a therapist and I had scheduled one appointment, for like a 30-minute session to talk about. And I essentially walked in, I said, I identify as transgender and I want to get top surgery. And we chatted for a bit, maybe for half an hour. And at the end of the session, she wrote me an approval letter to send to my insurance. And then I got approved just like that.
When you first started, you went in, you said to Planned Parenthood, they gave you testosterone immediately.
Yeah, I essentially just made a phone call and said, I want to transition. And it was immediately given. I got a prescription and went to pick it up like a week later.
Did they ask you questions? Did they do any psychological testing? Did they ask you why?
Nope.
What was your motive?
It was completely self-diagnosed.
You said, I want testosterone, they gave it to you.
Yeah, I had confused, because I had become uncomfortable with how society had seen me as a woman sexually. So I didn't actually have gender dysphoria. I had just confused myself into thinking that I did.
Planned Parenthood will take advantage of any opportunity to profit off of mutilating kids' bodies, whether that is children in the womb or destroying the bodies of healthy teenagers. As we know, in the last year, they have put a huge focus on this business. And we've said it before and we'll say it again. Planned Parenthood is grooming the next generation. It is why Planned Parenthood is in schools teaching sex ed. It is not to educate the youth. It is build a connection with them. If they can be in a school with young children, if they can convince them that they trust them, that they are safe, that they're safer than even going to their parents. When these children find themselves in a situation, whether it is in an unexpected pregnancy or in this case, somebody who is confused, Planned Parenthood is more than willing to profit off of them. How can Planned Parenthood claim to be pro-woman when they betray women by selling them abortions and are now mutilating young women? That is not pro-woman. Planned Parenthood is putting a giant target on women and saying, well, we're there for you and we're doing this for you. No, they're not. They are doing it for profit. What we've seen is that every single year, what increases? The amount of money that Planned Parenthood makes, the amount of money that Planned Parenthood receives from donors and the federal government. And do you know what also increases? The amount of women that are betrayed, because that is what is happening at Planned Parenthood. And we need to bring national attention to what is going on. This has to be something that we continue to fight, because I am sick and tired of us pretending like Planned Parenthood is not in every single state. And for most of us in our communities, near our grocery stores, near our schools, near our college campuses, they are targeting us every single day and getting away with it. We need to continue to talk about what is going on. We need to continue to raise our voices against Planned Parenthood and stand between them and the women that they target every single year. Planned Parenthood is not focused on healthcare. They are focused on benefiting from people that they view as weak and vulnerable. And unfortunately, they're succeeding clearly. The good news is that Planned Parenthood will not win. There will be a day where the curtain is pulled back and they are exposed and held accountable for every single thing that they have done. And that day will come a lot quicker if every single person uses their voice to speak truth and love, to stand between the abortion industry and the people that they claim to serve. It's our duty to make sure that we build a community and a country that effectively serves women and children and families so that abortion is not only unthinkable, but unnecessary everywhere.